We're back.
Hey, Stephen.
I'm so excited that we're back. So much happened in that first interview, and I've been eager to follow up, as I know many other people have too. I've gotten lots of great feedback. Kind of the general theme that I get is like, oh my gosh, like Michelle is so centered and so grounded and so connected to a higher frequency and vibration with this information that's coming through that's challenging. And how does she maintain that frequency? How does she maintain her center, her sense of peace and calm within all that got presented and got brought through? So I guess we can just start there.
Wow. That's a great question. And I use my tools. Most of the time I'm okay, but I have had a few times that because of what I see is so extreme and I trust what I'm getting because the accuracy has been so spot on over the years and everything that I received in the visions. And I've been getting more information that I'd like to share more broadly at some point, but I know it scares people. But it
scares us, but we're also intrigued, and we also want to know. It's like, wait a minute, you just said you got more. It's like, can you share more?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah, I would somehow, I don't know, whether this video will do another one to really, if I can just really be uncensored.
Sure.
And because I have tried doing that before, and I do get some pushback because some of it seems fantastical, but then later it ends up being exactly what happened. So I do a lot of emotional repatterning or clearing work. On my website, soulplayground.life, I have 5-step emotional clearing process, projection, perception. So I will use those tools as well as meditation. I think also what really helps me is that because I can see where we're going individually and as a collective, even beyond the time that, you and I are live, I can see what's going on. The middle part, I really don't want to experience. Then I have to say, all my life, I have seen things ahead of time and sometimes pretty dramatic or scary things, and they end up happening. So I have to trust that and know that I'm getting this information for a reason. And it's really to help people. Like I had a couple clients of mine that I really nudged to start working online. And I told them, you're not going to be able to work in person, and you're going to need to do this before February. This was before the pandemic happened. And I got a lot of pushback, and it's kind of hard, because, and I get it because I can be that way too. I mean, one of my mentors, and she used to give me readings, and I'd be like, I could feel myself, bristles, like, I don't want to experience, I want it this way. Mm-hmm. But we have to remember that's the ego. The ego knows what's happened in the past and what's going on in the present. It's not where we get our ideas, the insight, the inventions, innovations, the big idea. That doesn't come from that part of us, but we're so conditioned to focus only on that part. So a lot of what I do also is I look at the accuracy of my readings, what's come about, what I've received, from spirit or my guides, and then what happened, where did it go? And understanding that will be taken care of. Things are working out. And I look for signs of how they're working out, how things are actually maybe not on the surface looking so good. They look very difficult and challenging.
That seems important. I just want to say the signs aspect of things. Can you give an example just to kind of help the people with how that works for you exactly?
Yeah, it's really learning to look below the surface and not listen only to the mainstream narrative. And so I'm very comfortable. I look for signs everywhere. Like I'll even ask myself or pray or ask my higher self or spirit or, whatever phrase or word you want to use. I'll say, I need a sign. Or if I've been doing a lot of intuitive work, these signs just happen more and more and more. It's like I'm being led. So I look for words, that are repeated or phrases that point to where we're going. So, and then you look back, it's really almost like anybody that follows trends, whether weather or astrologers do this, people that invest in the stock market, they look at the technicals, they look at the fundamentals, they look at the trends of where we are now and what are the key markers. See, we're not taught to do this, but as a channel, that's what I look for. I'm reading these trends before they take physical form. I'm picking them up. Now, mind you, when I got the psychic vision about the pandemic and other things, 9/11 and other things that were going on, big things, trading, money, all of that, that just kind of came out of the blue. That I just received. But to train yourself to be more intuitive and read what's really going on, you have to reprogram your mind to not believe fully or only believe in what's on the top, like whatever's
on the surface level.
The surface level. So one example was, well, you look at yoga, you look at fitness, and then yoga, all of a sudden yoga happened and everybody was doing yoga, even if it was more like power yoga and ashtanga, that showed a level of consciousness. So we're always getting these signs of what is the actual level of consciousness, what's trying to emerge, what we call the new emerging consciousness. So I look for those. And then when you see things in advertising, so you always we saw for many years, body, mind, spirit, then people getting more conscious about food. All those things eke out. That's why the kind of the powers behind all this are, get concerned, because they can see where people are going individually also within the collective. So there can be, you're less manipulatable when you can see and feel what's really going on. I remember, because I've been working a lot with the soul forever, that's what I came here to do. And there was not a lot of people, very receptive people, because the soul implies to some degree limitation by design. When you're living by your soul's purpose, I mean, that's the most fulfilling, abundant way to live. However, it does imply a limitation because you have a soul design, you have a purpose, you have a soul signature frequency, you have in your design the fulfillment for what makes you more fulfilled. So you may not get or attain the same things as someone else. But when you really connect into your soul's purpose, then it's actually ultimately more fulfilling. So along with law of attraction, all that happened, there's a misuse of that, a misunderstanding of that. People thought, well, I can have anything I want. So why?
So would that be from the surface level then?
Yes.
The ego level? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Because they don't really know themselves. So they're going after things outside themselves. So all of a sudden, we started seeing more about soul. We saw more about meditation, also went from yoga to then mindfulness, meditation, then also into soul.
You do see that a lot in advertising. Yes. I see that a lot.
That's showing what's emerging, what's newly emerging in the consciousness. You have Kia soul. You have soul of the nation, the soul of business. Now you start
big companies, huge companies using that word.
And they don't know why. It's spirit, God, all that is downloading, coming through. People that, I even one time heard, I wish I remember the phrase, but it was on a mainstream news station. And the guy said something, it was a key word. I call them keywords, or they're positive trigger words, these keywords I look for. And he said one of the words in a sentence, and then he said, I don't even know why I said that. And I thought, I do. Through you. So awakening, now you hear awakening, the awakening in the stock market, awakening in business. Oh, they're having a financial awakening, a spiritual awakening of this. This is another key indicator. So awakening, soul. Another time I was watching a mainstream news program, and in fact, I had to screenshot it. On the program, behind the anchor, was the word synchronicities in the news. And I was like, now, never mentioned that was there, right? So then I'm seeing, okay, these are these changes. And I look for these changes particularly in the mainstream world or mainstream collective news, because that means, like me saying it, you saying it, the people, most people watching this, yeah, these are everyday, you know, phrases. This is our nomenclature. But when it starts getting more into the mainstream consciousness, recently I saw two commercials. One was, I don't, some kind of burger, and there was bacon. And there's this meditative voice going, "Breathe in the bacon." Something like that. Then there was another one, which I don't remember, another food, and it was again about meditation. There was this voice, and you could see this one, you could see the person. So these are these attempts, and you see it in all aspects of life. You see it in advertising, fashion. Fashion is a big indicator. I know a lot of people think, oh, fashion is so surface, but it's not. It is on one level, but underneath it, fashion reflects a consciousness of individuals and where the collective is going. And on that note, years ago when I had my talk show, Fashion and Beauty, my producer, I was able to produce two shows that were my liking, that I got to get producership on. And one was with multimillionaires, you know, what drove them, which was out of, I think we interviewed 200 people. We might have had 10, I don't know, 10 interviews that went to air. We did a whole series of it because I was curious what made people achieve. And the two things were, they followed their intuition. They had a dream, a vision, gut knowing, and they all got opposition. Those were the two things, that two aspects that every single one of those people said. The other project that I did had to do with fashion and the idea of adornment. So we think of fashion now as maybe looking cool or hip, but it really is about reflecting an aspect of ourselves. And in ancient times, if you look at ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, Babylonia, jewelry, adornment, crystals, stones was all spiritual. It had, and even what you wore, the colors you wore, you know, the sash, whatever it is, and especially jewelry. So we have this woven into our fabric, this archetypal images that are passed on, you know, generation after generation, thousands of years. It's in our cellular structure, our energetic DNA, you know, it's in the fabric of our being. Just like Roman goddess, you know, gods and goddesses, you know, Greek gods and goddesses, all these archetypes, the archetypes of the tarot, all of this we all experience and express out of archetypes. The big archetype now that's really trying to shift the collective consciousness, the all that is, the innate, infinite intelligence, what we say metaphysically, the one. Out of the one comes the many, and from the many is the one. Is the archetype of power over, underpowered, victim, abuser, or abuse.
Which has been going on for a long time.
Since recorded history.
Yeah.
Master, slave. It has a lot of different dynamics to it. And that is highly playing out now. This is where bullying comes from, this scapegoating. I mean, there's a lot of psychological archetypes you could put to it, but it all boils down. And the crux of it is this invader-dominator culture. That, and it's an aspect of everyone. Some people have more of it, obviously, where they want to invade or conquer and dominate. And it's, in its sense, it brings that win at all cost. Or there's such a fear of not having, not being able to express, not express things like the greatest invention or innovation, but really to express themselves. There's a deep disconnect from the soul. Anytime you have people that are happy to invade and dominate, they're not connected to their inner being, their sense of self, their soul. There's a disconnect there. And that disconnect has to be filled with ideas, concepts, beliefs, and actions that make them feel above or better. And so you see a lot of that playing out right now.
Interesting. I see a lot of that right now.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it, like in the cancel culture too. I mean, in every aspect of life, but you see, or at least from my observation, you see a lot of people that are not hearing people, they're not listening, that are more interested in being right or making sure that their point of view is the one that wins. You said it, that wins, versus really interested in collaboration and interested in actually being understood.
Yes, yes. Well, you think about it, physiologically, psychologically, we are wired this way. Some people, it's funny, some people are not. I've not ever been like this. I've been able to weave in a lot of different groups and people and hear a lot of points of view, even if I don't like something or agree with it. I'm like, okay, that's your opinion, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
College, I was probably more feisty, where I like to get in debates because I was very academic. I love studying. So I had the facts and figures, but that soon became boring to me because it's like, who cares? Because most times we're not going to convince somebody if they don't really want to know. People open and understand things in their own time, And even when I was growing up, my mom would be like, no, honey, in Spanish, no, mija, people aren't like, no, they're not like that. Because I'd be like, why can't they listen to all music or whatever, or talk to this person? One group wouldn't want to be with another group. And I'd be like, why? I find you learn from all these different people.
Yeah.
But a lot of people aren't like that. And unfortunately, our society, most of culture, especially all culture, I was going to say Western, but even you see this, unfortunately, in the Eastern or Asian, is they teach this compartmentalizing and like herding in this main way, this main trough, or really a gully, because you get stuck in there. Part of that is for safety, security. Back in, again, ancient times, it's really wrapped into that limbic that feels fear, and the reptilian aspect of the brain that says if everyone agrees and is similar or the same, then there's a predictability there, and then there's less that can happen. And so when people were coming on new lands, and the people that were native to there were living there, it was like, well, we haven't seen the unknown. So it's really this fear of the unknown, uncertainty. And, you also do see this in all systems, not just societal systems, world systems, educational, but family systems. It's the basis of dysfunction. It's not a functioning family or a functioning system. People are allowed to have difference of opinion, a different way of doing things, a different way of dressing, a different approach.
Well, I love this because what you're saying comes from compassion, and I feel connection when you speak about it in that way. So I just wanted to say that because I think that's really huge right now. And it sounds like, to back up from something you said about 5 or so minutes ago about people who are successful, they follow their intuition within opposition. And it seems to be that cancel culture just being one thing, but it seems as though life is presenting that opportunity in many ways for people to really strengthen that interconnection, which is, I know, where we started this whole thing, is how are you so centered within this whole thing? It's amazing.
Well, and also it's I feel like to be always a student. I know I'm a teacher. People look at me as a spiritual guide and teacher, and I'm therapist and channeler and whatever else, but I'm always learning, and the recognition that we're always going to be triggered by something. There's something that we're always going to not understand, but how close. And I'll be honest, there's been some people that I've been watching lately, their podcasts or interviews, that I actually had misconceptions about these people. Because I just saw little bits or sound bite. And lately, because I'm looking for the signs, I'm looking for the common thread, or I'm allowing myself to just be open and see what I'm drawn to. Doesn't mean I agree with these various people that I've been listening to or watching that I agree with all of it, but I do see a common thread. And some of them, yeah, some areas are way off. Some of them, there definitely was some things that were put in the media that was a twist. Some of them did say things in the media that they later now recanted or said they were misinformed on. And I think that's pretty fair, because I know me, I've said things before that I've been misinformed on. But this is the key. See, be willing to look. I mean, I haven't done it in a while, but especially in the mid 2000s, when I was channeling a lot of information and doing a lot of content creation, you know, for workshops, and I was working at a spiritual center teaching a lot. I was taking in a lot of media, and I would watch, even though I don't have Fox News, CNN, MSB, I would watch different RT.com, Al Jazeera, to see what's the common thread, or what is everybody talking about. Now, some of them just irritated the heck out of me, and I would just be, okay, I can't stand this. This is very low conscious. But I could see where they were coming from. I could actually feel and see the wounding, because people don't.
That's amazing, by the way. Sorry, I just want to say that, because it's incredible to be able to see where somebody's really at and not react, which seems to be very up right now.
Because the only reason people overreact or push their narrative is they're wounded. It's their inner child. They're in shame, or they're not feeling good enough. This is the clearing ground for a lot of spiritual teachers also. Are you pushing a narrative? I mean, I'm thinking right now, the people that are supposed to be spiritual teachers that are requesting to cancel somebody just because they have a difference of opinion, or in your opinion, it's disinformation. Well, how do you know? We haven't seen the whole test of this whole thing. We haven't seen what's going to happen in a year, 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years.
That's true. In the definition of science is a process. It's not a conclusion.
Science is a methodology. It's not always factual. Same with medicine. That's why they call it, and this is a doctor told me this, they call practicing medicine, because sometimes they don't know what to do, where the symptoms come from, or what will help it. They practice, they try. Oh, this pill or this medication seems to work. We use it on this many people. Oops, it didn't work on you. We'll try something else. Oh, nothing's working on you. We're not sure what's going on. I'll give an example. Years ago, when I became vegan, and a lot of, you know, my beliefs as also a holistic health practitioner, studying herbology and, you know, using herbs and supplements, and as a hypnotherapist, literally seeing physical change, illness, disease, you know, abated, alleviated, healed. But I got into soy. Now, back in the day, soy was it still is. What was very interesting is I did all the research on the internet. I talked to multiple doctors. I read all kinds of books. I had a bias because of my holistic health training, that I'm not a big meat eater, and I wasn't as a kid. I'm more vegetables and, you know, potatoes or whatever. Also, I love usula. So I had this idea already. So I started eating all this soy, and I read in the allopathic, in the traditional Western medicine, they were not keen on soy, especially for women. And if you were estrogen dominant, they said it could stop thyroid function. I read the literature, but then I chose the literature that was opposing, because it confirmed what I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, one of my teachers had said, you know, academic, I was working with a lot of professors at the time, and they said, you know, you can get 10 experts, scientists, doctors, experts in their field, to have one hypothesis or come to one conclusion, and you can get at least 10 that have the opposite, and both are right. Depends a lot on the tests, depends on natural bias, depends on the control group. And I learned from that. So what happens years later, I end up getting a thyroid condition. Took so long to find out what was going on. And then finally one doctor said, oh, you're not converting T3 to T4. You're making enough thyroid, but it's not converting. And I said, well, and this, they'd asked me about soy, and I said, I eat a lot of soy. And they said, well, the soy is blocking this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and what I found also interesting was at one point, you know, this is kind of digressing a little bit. This kind of shows a little peek if you do enough research. Soy was not promoted to be used as a meat substitute for many, 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 many years until, okay, coincidentally, that the government gave subsidized farmers into soy crops. And
wow.
now you see in a lot of women's supplements, and even for perimenopause, menopause, postmenopause, to have soy.
Mm-hmm.
But years later, 10 or more years later, the research said the opposite, that it was detrimental to women.
Well, and see, that's a great example, because that's a process, right? That's actually letting things unfold and being honest within the process, rather than being stringent on it's this way or that way.
Yes,
until you know.
And though the earlier research of the soy, it's processed food. You know, the way it's made, like in tofu, not the soybean. But the thing is that it isn't. The earlier research was actually accurate. And so now there's been a flip that people that are more health conscious, more into holistic health and naturopaths don't recommend soy, especially for women, because of that. But now the mainstream world, government, you know, pharmaceutical, they're putting soy into supplements.
Right, and there's a consciousness that thinks that it's healthy. I mean, I know it's like, oh, you have soy, you're healthy. And I can understand from experience too. It doesn't feel good in my body.
Informed, and things can change. There can be new data that comes in, but you have to be open. You know, you have to be willing to look, because I do know a lot of people that were told by their doctors, you know, Western or otherwise, certain things they need to change, and because they have a bias, they don't. Which that's, to me, that on one level, that's their individual right. You know, it's ultimately you have to do what's right for you. Part of what we're seeing too, Stephen, I will share with this, is the lower harmonic of the Aquarian age. A lot of people are just, oh, we're in the age of Aquarius, new age. It's about community, and it is, and coming together. But the lower harmonic is cults. Yes, it is peer pressure. It is.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of both right now. See that?
Exactly. And so every sign, every person, we have a lower, a mid, and a higher harmonic of us. And every era. And so you're seeing this also in this part of the awakening that's happening, where the converging flow, where everything's happening all at once. We're also starting to get what's called the soul alignment, where people are understanding and opening up more to the idea of a soul, which means you have a purpose for being here. You have a voice. You not only you have a purpose, but your vibrational frequency, your soul signature frequency, and all that you're about is needed and necessary. You know, it goes back to that physics maxim that, you know, nothing in the universe.
That's really key, though. I think that's really key within everything that's going on right now, because it's very easy to get caught up in the fear. Even sometimes hearing something from someone like yourself who's so centered and connected, somebody could be triggered and thrown off. But I just got what you were saying. When one is connected to that signature frequency, they're able to maybe maintain that vibration and connection to their part within all that's going on, and that they're here by design and on purpose.
Yes. And even if somebody is here acting out a lower level harmonic, and less conscious, less aware, even oppressive, they're here because there is enough resonance with what they're expressing in the world. In other words, we still need it, otherwise it would be extinct. this is why arguing and fighting against doesn't help. That's why we have wars. Otherwise, we would have no more war. War doesn't work. Arguing eventually doesn't work.
Right.
We actually, as Carl Jung said, we grow out of the problem. Carl Jung or Einstein. We get bored with it or we grow out of it. And part of what's happening now is people are awakening that they have a voice, that they can make a difference, but it's still lower harmonic. It's people that want to troll. It's people that want to push, I'm right.
Right.
You're, I don't know, alt-right, you're a this, you're a that, an anti. And then they're feeling empowered, but they're so disconnected. They're disconnected.
And where that's coming from, because I've experienced it a lot myself, it's not coming from that place we were talking about moments ago that's inclusive and understanding. And that place can have many point of views and many perspectives. But it seems like when one is only pointing the finger that, right, they can have a moment where they'll feel energized, but it's not true and sustainable empowerment.
Yeah. Because people that are truly more awake, aware, more conscious, try to find a middle way or understanding. Mm-hmm. If you can't, you can't. That's one thing, and obviously if somebody's attacking you, you have to do something. There's these extremes. I know people bring up, sometimes I post something and then people come up with these like extreme examples, which to me is just a way of deflecting. Because if you're not, I'm connected in my own inner knowing. So whatever you have to say about me, whatever,
it's someone's own projection or whatever.
Like I remember one time I hadn't, because I started my YouTube channel a long time ago, but just as to house videos, because I wasn't focused on it. I was doing my podcast and doing other things. And so one day when I started doing readings again on it, because I never had, and I thought, I'm going to put some energy to this. I love connecting with everyone. And shout out to those that are watching later. But somebody put on there, I assume it's a guy, because I had a guy's name. And he said, he left a comment on a video. What happened to Michelle Mache? She was this top international model and had a TV show, and look what she's doing now. And someone said, oh, I'm sorry. And I said, no, that's so funny that they don't really know me, because I've always been involved in metaphysics. And even when I was modeling, I was doing readings. That's why I started doing readings then. And I was doing healing work and channeling. And, I went to India and, studied with a teacher of mine there. And I said, it just shows me that this person thinks they know me and they have no clue, of what I'm about.
That's fascinating. Huh.
Yeah. So you're seeing a lot of that now. People, to me, someone to do that is not content, or it doesn't have joy. I mean, we all get unhappy, we get depressed, but there is a baseline when you're connected to your soul, you're living more through your higher self. There is this baseline of joy, of peace. And there's a part that can say, I remember when I did that, or I was like that. Or you spot things. There's been some things that some people have shared with me that's going on within this whole cancel culture. And they're like, oh, I can't believe that person did this. They're so spiritual. And I said, I never thought they were. I said, they're a poser. Now that might sound harsh, but
I think that's actually true. And I think we're getting the opportunity to see that in ways that we haven't before, because all that's going on is really bringing up to the surface where people are at, it seems to me. Exactly. And giving us that opportunity to, even if we're not totally where you're at, to have that opportunity to align more within the face of that. Because would you say that it's probably going to get even more amped up? That's just how it feels like to me.
Especially next year.
Really? 2023?
2024. Yeah. Unfortunately, and part of this optimistic part of mine, I always feel like, we can mitigate it, make it less extreme, but we've marched into something. We're part of the mainstream. I mean, even no matter how fringe we are or on the outskirts or having a different point of view, there still is this mainstream, in a sense, narrative script that will, you know, affect
play out.
And I think, I mean, part of this in this Aquarian age also is self-responsibility and accountability, that people need to do more to trust their feeling and not go with what seems to be the best marketed or the most popular, because that's how we get, you know, tricked in a way. Because we would look at likes, we look at, you know, numbers, and people want to have more likes, want to have more numbers of some sort. This quantitative, which is very, it's an overuse of the masculine aspect of our being, this quantitative approach instead of qualitative. And I think, you know, I'm definitely not perfect. I still, you know, work on myself. Like I said, I get triggered too. I have to, you know, take things within, and I will, you know, get hurt and have to look at, okay, what's my part in this? Or how am I responding? In saying that, I can say, in my opinion, though, to be more spiritually aware, more conscious, we would at least say, well, how can we do this? Wait a minute. Instead of saying, I don't like what you said, or I don't believe in the doctors you had on the show, or guests, or whatever they are, get rid of you, cancel. Or instead of saying, if you don't, peer pressure, bullying. I mean, as far as I know, with my, as a therapist and a teacher, and seeing people get bullied, which I would always intervene. I feel like if people feel the need to have bully or have peer pressure, something's wrong, something's off. Because when you're bullying, you're having to overpower someone, and when we feel we have to overpower someone, that means we don't feel we're empowered. Same with the person being bullied; they have to learn that they do have a power, to find that inner power within them, however that, you know, is contextualized for them. So I would just say, how do we do this? How do we have these different points of view, and at least tolerate, and if not, have tolerance, respect, and then move into honoring. I've said it on my
which is challenging with people who are coming at you and are not hearing. So it's a really good thing to bring up.
What's going to be happening, and this is why it's good to let go of labels of what someone looks like, or somebody's so evolved because they're on the bestseller list, or they have this many followers or likes. You have to let that's part of that old glamour realm. I think we talked about that last video, but the Piscean age, it's the glamour, you know, which glamour can be nice, but when you live with the filter of glamour, and that's how you see things, you put people on pedestals, you know, and you listen to those people, whether it's an authority figure, a celebrity, a star, and they're running things. You know, I mean, it's so funny because so many times celebrities, they're a little more open about it now, but a lot of people use something, you know, or there's product placement in a video or a film, and they don't necessarily say that, or it's way in the back of the credits. So I think people have to just stop and say, okay, let me just check in with my own inner knowing, my own inner authority. Is this something I actually believe or would do? Or not, or let me find out more information. I think that's just where I'm coming from. Why are there not more people coming from that place? Fear of dying. I have a look at that.
Right. Fear of survival.
If I'm going to die, you know.
Yeah.
I don't want to get to the place where I'm losing humanity and respect and love for people out of fear. And that's what I feel is happening. People are, you know, cancel this person, or don't go here, don't shop here, don't believe in and it's like, well, no, that's a person's livelihood. What's going on? But
it seems like that those people that are coming from that place are really kind of not able to see from that standpoint, because all logic kind of goes out the window in terms of that. From my perspective, it seems that their perspective is one size fits all. And that is never how it's worked, ever in the history of anything, of life on this earth.
Opinions since I can remember, but since
I mean that's what makes the world, beautiful, that we're different.
Yeah.
But that's something. It seems that people who are coming from that place can't let in the truth of even hearing that, because they're so afraid, is what you're saying, and I could see that they're so afraid, really, of dying ultimately, in some sense or another.
The issue is they are actually in a heightened, traumatized state right now, and many people don't realize it, and they're reacting from that.
I see.
That's why they can't listen or hear,
because they can't process, actually, right?
Exactly, because you have to release, get a little bit, if not fully. We keep getting re-stimulated, re-traumatized. You have to have a break or a way of pulling back to hear your own voice and feel, and to reset. And a lot of these people, they think they're doing it, but they're not. Otherwise, they wouldn't be responding. I'll give you another example. I had on my podcast months back. I don't know how many months back, quite a while. And because we have a great listener base, we don't usually get lower vibrational happenings. Don't get people trolling, really. I was talking because some people asked me what the guide said about the vaccine. And I went in, I used my intuition, connecting to source, asked my guides. They kept saying it's not about the vaccine. That's a personal choice. I'm not taking it. I don't, but that's my belief. And I'm not, I actually used what I got it, hydroxychloroquine, and that knocked it out. So, but I'm not going to tell somebody to do it or don't do it, because I don't know their history, and that's not my responsibility. And not even
because one size doesn't fit all. Yeah. I said because one size doesn't fit all.
No. So on my podcast, somebody, I think they were in the chat, or they called in and they were in the chat, and they didn't hear everything. This is such a good example. And it was in the chat. And I see they were putting in there, Michelle is supposed to be this internationally renowned psychic and really accurate, and yet she's telling people to take the vaccine. How evolved is that? And I was like, wow, obviously you just, and saying other things, going on and on and on. And we had a guest on. I said, I really just have to address this. And I just said, you didn't hear what I said. And I said, but they did hear something. They said, but you're not telling people not to take it, and you should be, by what you know. And if you're so spiritual and whatever, conscious, holistic, they went to a lot of things.
Wow.
And I said, but if I am telling people, pushing it on them, to me, I'm just as unconscious and unaware and less evolved as the people that are pushing to do it.
Of course. It's the same consciousness.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Me coming out and pointing fingers and saying, if you do this, you're less this, or you're more that, or whatever. It's the same thing, but people don't see that. And so I tried to explain that. I said, it's not my place. And I'm not a paid endorser. That's not, it's not my gig, not my job. It's not my belief. Even if it was my belief, it's not my place to come out and say that. So you're seeing this lower level expression. People try, I feel it's like the consciousness of the all that is coming through, which is us. It's an aspect of us, all of us, trying to wake people up to, you have something important to say, which is also how we live our life. It's not just what we verbalize, but it's also our expression, how we experience life in our expression. But if you don't feel that you're enough by what you do and how you are, then you look for ways to seemingly usurp power and have this dominance and power over. I always notice, whether it doesn't matter the level, perceived mainstream level somebody's at, financially, executive, big owner, CEO, whatever you want to put, Pope, whatever. I look at how are they responding? Are they trying to have dominance or power over or overpower? Then I know they're living out of their wounded inner child, the little kid inside. There's some need that wasn't met. Because once that need is met, it's like you want to, instead of creating a wall, you want to reach out and go, hey, hi, okay.
Connection. You want to have connection.
Yeah. Even saying, I don't know, some of the spiritual, and I know I'm kind of calling them out in a little bit, but I have a lot of clients, students, callers that just say, where's my tribe? This person was so vitriolic to me, or so mean to me, or has such extreme views, because I had worked with people on all, race, color, creed, religion, ethnicity, some vax, some non-vax, some did some not do, all over the spectrum. And I respect their choice on that. But some are being so staunch about things that some people are saying, I don't now know where to go, or I can't do that class anymore. I can't do this. My suggestion, or I would just implore, like, why can't it be said, well, how can we do this? How can we work this out? What's the way to work this out that's good for all concerned? Their beliefs. And what many people
that's huge. That's huge.
What many people
because that's inclusive.
Yes,
that's inclusive, and that's coming from a place of what you said earlier, which is wanting to honor everybody, is posing the question instead of
whether you can or not, whether you ultimately don't, just pose the question instead of making wrong or spreading shame. I had a dear client of mine that actually did not want to get the vax and had to work, and said, does this mean spiritually I'm not as evolved, or is this going to stop my my unfolding, and is this diminishing my consciousness, and I feel so bad, but I can't afford not to have this job. And I said, no, it has nothing to do with that. But that's and then on the other side, it's, if you don't do that, then you're not caring for humanity and something's wrong for you.
Well, that's what's fascinating, is that you're, like you said, it's on both sides, and it seems to be stemming from the same fear of survival, ultimately, on some level, or not, or wounding fear of survival.
The wounding, I mean, I get it. I always say I wouldn't mind death, because I've had 2 near-death experiences. I don't want to suffer.
Oh, wow.
So whether it's we don't want to suffer, we don't want to have loss, or some people, they don't want to die. Dying feels pretty good, I can tell you that. Definitely not so.
Or even a psychological death, or death of a loss. Loss, I guess, is maybe a better way of putting it.
We don't want the loss.
Yeah.
We want to hedge our bets. Like, if I believe this way, this expert told me, whether it's a religious leader or teacher, a lot of people don't want to have to look within. And I know it can be challenging, but I will say, on the other side of it, it also can be very enriching. Once you get over the little scary bumps about it, it's actually, you just feel kind of held in the universe's arms. You just feel connection to spirit, the spirit realm, to the part of you that you can't see. You actually feel more connected to humanity, even in the atrocities. Doesn't mean you like it, doesn't mean you make excuses, doesn't mean you understand everything. I surely don't understand everything. I mean, if I could, there's a lot that I would change. But I keep going back to what I know as a metaphysician, as an esotericist, as a spiritualist, is that if whatever it is wasn't still needed and necessary, if there wasn't enough of that resonance and vibrational frequency in the collective consciousness, and a small amount in you, everybody, that we would not be going through this. And the only way to update or up level is to do the deeper healing work, you know, repatterning, healing work, just bring more awareness and understand your wounds and why you're responding a certain way or even reacting or overreacting a certain way. Just that pause. And as we said earlier, just saying, well, how could we do this? Just in your own mind. How could we come together? You know, or maybe
I like that. I like that because there's some people you can't pose that question to. But that's helpful to be able even just to go there in your mind.
Yeah, and you can feel it. Someone posted some stuff, a response to something I wrote the other day, and I could just feel this anger and this vitriol. But I could feel in their body, they're like this. And I answered some of it, and then I thought, I just can't. I can't, because I don't want to try to convince someone.
Sure, right.
I know in my life, a lot of my deeper healing or learning has come when in the right time. Maybe something I heard a few times, and then one time something clicked, something lined up, and I was more, you know, receptive. You know, and we do need those right now. We need those safe spots, those respites, those places where people can come together and like you said earlier, listen and really hear and acknowledge and understand or not understand or understand, but maybe not agree. You know, and that's
it does seem like there's more people that are of that ilk these days, even though it doesn't seem like we're all together yet, or we haven't all found each other. But you were talking about the signs, and I definitely am seeing that in my own life.
I think that's the next step, because the people that are more like this really don't want the conflict or the arguing.
Right.
We don't, it's not about the likes. It's not about the numbers. It's not about the, you know, like, because clearly, even what I channeled, you know, 2017, 2018, I could have come out on YouTube and I could have come out on Facebook, and I would have had a lot of likes and follows. And
I'm sure. And people now will be like, hey, because I remember when you predicted it all. But and you did way back then.
Yeah, that's not my game. My game is really more to
bring consciousness.
Bring consciousness and have a place. Explain, you know, people, you know, want information to explain how do we navigate through what we're going through, where are we going, and have a safe place. I mean, one thing I've been telling people, especially on my podcast, when people are calling in, I'm like, don't expect the person that you resonate a lot with and maybe you help or they help you or you come together to look like you. They may not be quote unquote spiritual. You know, we talked about this last, when we talked last time in the video. It may be somebody that you would consider, whether alt-right and you're the liberal, or they're liberal and you're alt-right, whatever these terms, these names, they may be you may be city and they may be country folk, you know, you may be having your little, you know, Impossible burger at a community gathering and they have their buffalo burger, you know. So we have to go beyond these outer concerns, because what happened in the old paradigm, and it's still happening to some degree, people think by what you eat, what you wear, that has some, you know, you want to care obviously for the, you know, the earth, climate, but it does not determine consciousness. And that's what people have to see. We are so
That's a big one. That's a really big one.
Yes. We are so stuck on the outer. I think actually Europe is better. When I lived in Europe, a lot of teachers, a lot of people that I worked with or talked with, they're they have a different sensibility, but definitely in the States, we bit into that. I think it started probably in the 50s. It's a certain type of advertising and marketing. I can't think of what the name is, but I saw a special on it and I read a book on it years ago. And it had just lifestyle trends, lifestyle advertising. And so now that's encoded within us. We believe the outer lifestyle. That's what, like, what's happening with social media. Some of that obviously is true, whatever people are posting, some of it, but it's not the whole picture. And so we believe these sound bites. That's how, you know, where we've been trained in sound bites, educated in sound bites, clips, video clips, audio clips, and we take that as the truth or meaning something when it's only a small part. And I think that's why my guides have always said, teach people to trust their intuition, their inner knowing, to decipher, to develop their intuition more, to trust their inner knowing, to connect in with their inner being, with their soul. And then they'll be okay. Then they'll know what to do. And that, I've been finding that with clients of mine, students, friends. They'll just bring it back to them, and they're making those decisions from there, and things are really lining up for them. Things are for me,
because it's empowering, because they're coming from their, like you said, their intuition, their wisdom, their inner guidance system, and they're following through on that work.
Yeah. And because I can't say, I mean, I can suggest, I can predict things, but still, what is the right choice and what's going to line you up for the most soul expression and experience, the most abundance, love, light, prosperity in your life, fulfillment, is going to ultimately come from within you.
I love that. And would you say that even within these times where things can look grim, some aspects of things can look grim, that there's also, as you put it, another emerging consciousness and perhaps even greater potential than there ever has been to align to soul and to align to purpose and to really live it in a way that we never have?
Absolutely. That's
exciting. I got chills when you said that.
That is what's called the converging flow, which started in 2005. So this whole harmonizing aspect started around the late 80s. So really, the universal, all that is God, whatever your spirit, innate intelligence, you know, I say all these because I know people get triggered by certain words or phrases, whatever you want to call it, is going to the binding principle, which is love. So we're actually moving more towards harmonizing and unification. Even externally doesn't look like it. It's called harmony through conflict, right? You have the argument to conflict, and then you harmonize, you come to that middle. But this really started and ramped up in 2005. The converging flow means everything is happening at once. You notice right around that time, we had a lot of weather disasters, climate, we had the tsunami. Things that happened 50, 100, every 500 years or 1,000 years now are happening every year, every couple of years. So there's a ramping up of events individually and collectively. So yes, within that converging flow, there's a lot that's breaking down. There's a lot that's misunderstood, but there's a lot that's understood, and there's a lot that's building back up. Ultimately, what's happening is people, and this is what is meant to happen, are moving into other systems. They're creating other systems, other educational systems, other systems of governing, financial systems, these other systems. And that's what I'm more interested in, rather than convincing people of the old system. I'm definitely a bridger. There's a lot of bridgers right now that are on the planet that are more and more active. But we need people that bridge, but we have to go somewhere to go. So yes, there are always going to be people that are either fighting within the old system or trying to break it down, and those that are trying to prop it up. But then there are those that I call on the front line, or they're in the head of the hike, and they go off and they're lookout, right? They go, oh, okay. And they go, you know, put the tents down and whatever, get the grill going, get the drinks happening. They check out the place for laying out by the beach or surfing. You know what I'm saying? There are those.
Yeah.
So that's, you know, and metaphysically, what we call esotericists, there's bridgers and the builders. And they love building. You see, whether it's an app, whether it's a company, whether it's a school, institution, they love building community, love bringing people together. And so you're going to see this year a lot more activation of that, the bridging, the building, coming together in community. I think that's why I'm so open for us doing what we're doing in this talking and connecting, is to let people know, no, there are places to go. They're being met. There are people that are quietly saying, this is horrible. I hope it goes away. I don't understand it, or I understand it. I want to do what I can to make it better, or I'm not going to play into this. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do, whether it's them keeping their business open to vaxxed or unvaxxed, that's what people are getting stuck on it's what that represents. And it's the system that is creating that. We'll do another video all on that, but it's something that's been
control and segregation.
Yeah, there's a lot that's going into that. And again, any oppressor or abuser, you see this in abusive relationships. It's called gaslighting. They make people think that it's about the vaccine and non-vax. They're getting people all whipped up about that, which is a very trivial in the big scheme of things. We can, people can research either side. You can read if there's sides. I feel like there's many sides, but I know there's two main sides. But there's a lot of research that can be looked at now that's very, not only formidable, but very valid as to other means, or the how well it works, efficacy of and my prediction. But when this happened, I said, there's going to be there's going to be booster, and I said there's going to be 4 vaccines. And I just heard the other day there's another one. There's going to be another one. It's good for all of it, everything.
Oh, well, that's supposed to take care of everything.
You can get 2, you can get 3, and then the booster in between, and then there's a 4th one that's supposed to help with more than one. I get it. I still remember that I talked about in the last video, that doctor that I talked to was Bush's doctor and was a White House doctor, and he was in Chicago to do a keynote, and I worked on him, did energy work. He was trying to debunk me, which I didn't know. And he said back then in 1995, told me, we're losing billions of dollars. The pharmaceutical companies are losing billions of dollars because of people like you and taking these herbs and shopping the health food stores. Wow. And that means the government is losing billions of dollars. And then he told me all how it worked, offered me a job.
Wow. That's fascinating. It's fascinating that it's just not even accepted as another possible way to do things more naturally.
His idea was he had a group of people. In fact, he put me on the phone with an acupuncturist that was in the group that they had hired. He wanted us to train their doctors to do what we did. And I said, well, why can't we're adjunct medicine, auxiliary medicine, we're, complementary medicine, as a hypnotherapist and all the work, the holistic health practitioner training and the healing work. I said, you could refer out, have the doctors refer, because that's when I work with traditional, MDs, cardiologists, psychiatrists, they refer out the patient to me for anywhere from 6 to 12 sessions. And then I work with them, mainly when I was doing a lot of medical hypnotherapy. And then I would refer back. And he said, oh, no, not right. No, we want to have our doctors do it. We just want you to train them. And
wow.
I sent an email thanking him, and I didn't take the position. I didn't go further with it. But it's
fascinating. It'd be one thing if it was a cure, but it's not. And that's no judgment. It's just the truth of the way it is. And it usually takes 7 years to approve these things, just because we need time to see how it affects the innate immune system.
Exactly.
And that and again, I'm not anti that at all. Like I know many people who are, and your body, your choice, and that's totally fine. But it's
when I had the bird flu A1 before all this happened, and I took the Tamiflu, it knocked it right out. But it's been around a long time, and Yeah,
But
and
it's
I think
not
too, Stephen, what we're saying too is,
a one size fits all thing, but it's,
are we almost done?
I was just saying, I was just saying, I'm going back to things I keep saying, which is it's not one size fits all. And if you even look at the science,
Yeah.
that's accurate. And even in terms of this and in how some people have been affected, some that I know,
Well, even
close to
now,
some
Rite
people.
Aid,
And
and I think there's
again,
one other pharmacy. I don't remember if it was Walgreens, but for sure Rite Aid, because I saw something on it the other day. They're advertising how they have a regular pharmacist and then they have one for natural remedies, supplements, and
oh, okay.
so you are going to see in the coming years, you're going to see a rise, especially, I mean, you can look at it astrologically also with Jupiter and Pisces. Things like mushrooms, even psilocybin with mushrooms, what is it, DMT, a lot with, you know, pot, marijuana, whatever. You're going to see a lot with that kind of the pharmaceutical, but it's still outside of ourselves. There is going to be a decided shift where pharmaceuticals, and I think they know this because they have psychics and channelers and remote, they have astrologer, they see the trends. Who's behind this, you know, the whole enchilada, we don't have to explain everything.
Sure.
They see the trend, right? So eventually what will happen though is that more and more people are going to be tapping into their innate healing ability. That doesn't mean there won't be outside or adjunct, you know, therapies or auxiliary, you know, aspects to healing or devices. You will see a lot of rise in devices, but eventually there's going to be a lot more using the innate body mind system. You know, and I can tell you as a hypnotherapist, I have worked with one woman who, this was very interesting. This was when I was in Chicago. She came to me, I did some healing work and also gave her some, suggested some herbs for her to take. She was slated for 2 weeks after we met to have a radical hysterectomy because she was having some really bad issues. I don't know if it was cysts and bleeding. And her doctor said this was the only way. And she had told it to me. I said, well, we can try this and I can do this, the energy work on you and give you, you know, this protocol. Do you know the next time she came to me for a session, no hysterectomy, and she still has everything, you know.
Wow.
Everything.
Wow.
And the doctor, she went in, for 2 weeks, she did the protocol and got the healing work, the energy work, and she went back to the doctor and the doctor said, it's okay, it's cleared, you don't have to have the surgery.
That's amazing.
Other people I work with lowering blood pressure, cancer, I can't say, I'll say a remission. A woman I worked with had Sjogren's disease, autoimmune, was in a lot of pain, could not be touched. To touch, so much pain, like needles, tingling, dry eye, and the drops weren't working. And she didn't tell me everything in the beginning. We just worked and she'd say, I want to work on this, and we'd work on it. And her hearing came back. She was able to sleep with her husband and have him hold her. She hadn't been able to do that for years.
Wow. Wow.
Intense pain. And went to the doctor, and the doctor, they took blood tests. No, it did not show the disease at all in the blood. He was shocked. He said, what have you been doing? And the only where it showed up, there's some kind of test they do with the tongue or saliva where I do like a biopsy or something. I don't remember exactly. And it showed there, but most of the symptoms were alleviated. I could go on and on and on. So this is for me why when people are only pushing one narrative, it's like, I know these are anecdotal, but I could get the people. Do I need to get the people to come on the?
Right, of course. But you've had the firsthand experience, and that's the thing.
And I've seen things within myself. I was told I had to have surgery one time for my neck pain, and they explained the surgery. But you have to be put out, otherwise, if you move, you could be paralyzed. And I was like, okay. I went to the health food store, and I was like, a really good one, and I went to the guy. I said, look, there's got to be a herb, something. I mean, I go, I've taken for everything. I go, there must be something. And he gave me Solgar 7x7. It has bromelia in it. And he said, this isn't exactly for what you have, but maybe it'll work. And I'll never forget, went home with all my groceries, excruciating pain, called Rach, my at the time, dear friend and metaphysical teacher, mentor, told her about the pills. And as I'm talking, I thought, well, he said it's going to take 7 days. I took one, chatting on the phone, and then I went, oh my God. She's like, what? I go, my pain is completely gone, and it never came back. I took that bottle of 7 Solgar 7, Solgar, back to the neurosurgeon, osteopath, orthopedic surgeon, and neural. There was both because he worked neurology. And I told him what happened. And I said, you might want to say, and he said, that's impossible. I said, okay, I'm just telling you, you remember when I came in and all the pain and you took the test and you told me I had to have surgery? And he said, yes. I said, I'm telling you, this has I looked up bromelia, anti-inflammatory, what it does, and turmeric. He said, that's impossible. I said, well, it's not impossible because I just had that experience and I'm quite of sound mind. And I'm also a good skeptic. And he said, well, I don't know anything about it. We don't have the research. I said, that's fair enough. I said, I'm just suggesting that you might want to look into this because of what I experienced. And he said, well, I don't know anything about that. We don't. I said, okay, I know you don't learn about this in school, but I said, I'm just sharing. My acupuncture was more open to it. She took the name down and said, I'm going to tell my patients about this. So
that's fascinating. I mean, and I've had, I won't go into all my experiences, but I've had a few myself, one having to do with surgery and one having to do with an immune disorder and amongst other viruses and ailments that a doctor had said that you may never get over that. You may have it for 30 years. Couldn't function, couldn't exercise, couldn't do anything. And it all healed. So we do have this innate intelligence, this inner pharmacy for healing that not just you and I have experienced, but I know many others that have too. And so that's the fascinating thing, is that that's also true. It's not to say that these other things, faxes and whatever, can't be tools as well. So we don't discredit that, but this is also true. And we want that to be a part of the dialogue.
Yes. And that's part of what you said with the whole beginning of our conversation, is if people will remember the times that this has happened for them, or they heard the story, or their friend or family member, they can't do that. Get online, get a book, ebook, Kindle, whatever. Plenty of stories of people that have overcome. That raises your vibrational frequency. That instills hope.
Empowering. Yes.
And that tells you that no matter what happens, we're going to get through this, because
oh, I love that.
We're wired for life enhancing. Everything in the world, plant, everything grows towards the light. Everything grows towards homeostasis, balance, not just survival, that's the minimum, but also thriving. You know, we see it with the little sprout that comes out of the concrete sidewalk, that little green shoot or sprout, and then we see a little flower at the end. So that's how I keep my vibrational frequency up. That's part of looking at the signs. I'll talk to people, I'll read things, I'll watch things that confirm the best in all of us and connect into that innate infinite intelligence, that creative aspect of us, the healing aspect of us. Because that healing aspect within us is also what is going to make the change with people that are very, I don't know what I want to say, that are very divisive. Mm-hmm. You know, very combative. Disconnected, also disconnected. They'll feel that energy. That energy will become more. Now, will they have a complete turnaround? No. Do they need to? No. But there'll be a different, like a cushioning. There'll be a energy.
A softening.
A softening,
so to speak.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. I don't even, that seems like a good place to end on, because that's a very high frequency. And I so appreciate your, like I said, your ability to be able to speak on these things from such a place of centeredness and groundedness and also expansiveness, so that we can, all of us, feel that frequency and also do the work to help ourselves maintain that frequency. And I love that you mentioned the 5-step emotional clearing, which is incredible. I'm sorry, you mentioned 2 or 3 things. I know the five-step emotional clearing.
Perception. So when we're projecting,
perception,
out,
yes,
which is what's happening a lot with people right now. That's a form also of gaslighting.
And where can people get these things?
On my blog, actually, they can copy and paste the basic 5-step emotional clearing process and projection, perception, and how to take back projections. That's all in the blog, and that's also in Soul Path Tools. If they want the advanced 5-step emotional clearing process, it's an MP3 that they can get. But people are pass it on, copy and paste it. And I do it now in my head, because we still always get triggered. I get triggered, I get, how did they hurt me, or sad? And I'm like, okay, we got to self-soothe. We got to take care of ourselves.
But it's helpful that we have these tools to work with, and that you've recorded that address specifically what we're going through right now. That's incredible.
Yeah. I think that's what we're all going to have to do, because this connection and sharing is part of that softness, is part of that cushioning.
Right.
We're not, if we're going to talk sides, anyone can watch this. Anyone can view. Anyone can agree or disagree.
Right.
This is expansive. We're not excluding anyone in this.
That's where you get that sense, or at least that's how I'm feeling right now, is that all is well. Even within what we're talking about, you get this underlying sense of peace. That's not a high or a low, like you said before, but is this grounded sense of, we're going to be okay.
Yeah. Gonna make it
awesome.
Okay. We're gonna be okay.
Amen to that. Wow. Well, thank you again for another beautiful exchange, and I look forward to the next one, hopefully very soon.
Me as well. Yeah, I've got a lot on your wisdom. A lot of people commented to me, "Who is Stephen? He's so wise. I love what he was sharing. I love what he was saying."
Oh, that's sweet and generous. I appreciate hearing that. Thank you.
It's nice.
Well, it's nice to be able to speak on these things with you, because then I just feed off of the dialogue. So I'm glad that I can be of service in this way.
Yeah, me too. And to everyone we're connecting with, lots of love and light to you. And thank you for your presence and being here.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Take good care.